Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of TV Thursday. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to those of you celebrating it in the States, as I did. I went and had a nice, quiet Thanksgiving dinner with my family. No drama this year, so that was nice. Then afterwards, I came home, slept for a little while, and then sat down and watched the first episode of The Punisher, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, The Punisher isn't something that I've been clamoring for. When he was introduced in Daredevil Season 2, I thought he had a great arc, in his kind of abbreviated introduction into the world. But a lot of his scenes I kind of had to, watch like this. I'm not a huge fan of violence in film, and specifically that kind of level of hyper or violent action just doesn't appeal to me, and so that was my big fear, was when that got announced, and when they announced, oh, hey, we're going to make a Punisher show, I was like, I don't want to live with this character for 10, 13 episodes. That doesn't interest me. I don't know if I'll come back and watch that. But I've been hearing good things about it. It does seem like it's kind of been a turnoff to a lot of people. And so I'm not seeing, as much buzz for it as there was, especially when he was in Daredevil Season 2, and everybody was like, oh my god, the Punisher is the best thing about Daredevil Season 2. So I watched the first episode with kind of the mindset of, I don't know if I'm going to watch the entirety of this series. But I watched the first episode today, and it very much kind of gets you back into the swing of things. The opening bit is a montage of Frank Castle, kind of where we left him when he left Daredevil Season 2. He's out there kind of getting vengeance for all of the people who led to the deaths of his family, who killed his family. And so we see a handful of him just killing some bikers, killing some cartel people, killing a guy in a bathroom. And then we cut to 6 months later, where he's kind of, put the Punisher persona to rest. He maybe faked his death. It seems like that's kind of what is alluded to here. And he's working a construction job under an alias, under an assumed name. And the longest little scene we get here is him going to kind of a veterans support group. He doesn't actually sit around the room and listen to stories, but he does sit outside the room. Interesting little thing in there is they start telling the story about this soldier who's down in a hill, and he gets told by his commanding officer to dig deeper, and then he gets drugged by a medic, and then somebody else jumps in to the hole and says, don't worry, buddy, I've been here before. And I've been watching some West Wing recently, and that's a very iconic story in the West Wing. And so as soon as I started hearing this story, I was like, are they telling the don't worry, buddy, I know the way out kind of story? And yep, sure enough, that's what they told. So interesting little parallel between kind of my current viewing options there. At the construction site, it seems like that's mostly a setup to basically get Frank back into kind of his persona and into the criminal world. Some guys kind of try and do a heist that goes awry, and so he ends up kind of taking them out because they're going to try and kill off one of the guys who befriends him on the site. And then he goes to the restaurant where the poker game mishap happened, and he basically takes out all the criminal underworld element there and kind of asserts himself back into the scene a little bit. Elsewhere, we're introduced to Agent Madani and Stein, her kind of subordinate / partner, and she's basically been removed from an investigation she was doing in Afghanistan, but she's trying to bring it back here, and it seems like she'll be investigating specifically Frank Castle, but she's very much kind of shot down by her superiors. Don't really know where that story's gonna go. It's not too much to base off of just this one episode. All in all, this episode's a slow burn to get Frank kind of back into action. He spends a lot of the episode just kind of alone with his thoughts of his family, and that's not good for Frank. He's constantly, as we learned in Daredevil, he's constantly living with the pain of that, like, seeing their murder, and every morning, like, visions of his wife come wake him up. He's seeing his kids a lot in this episode. So yeah, it's definitely still haunting him, and I imagine it will continue to throughout the series. And sure enough, as I mentioned earlier, the big action scene at the end of this episode is Frank taking out a whole bunch of kind of the bad guys at the construction site that he's working at, and then he does that in like a physical fist fight with a sledgehammer in particular, and that was one of those where I was just kind of like, yep, watching like this, not really paying too much attention because I don't really want to see that, and then it cuts to him basically shooting up the basement of this restaurant bar where the poker game was. And those are my thoughts on the 3 a.m. episode of The Punisher. Like I said, I don't know if I'm interested in really sticking this one out. It's already, depressing subject matter. I don't really want to, if I'm going through like my own bits of depression and stuff right now, I don't want to dive into more of that and just kind of wallow in that kind of sadness for a Netflix show, especially one that's going to be hyper violent and just, which is another turnoff of mine. So, but those are my thoughts on The Punisher season premiere. Let me know what you think about the show in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends and have a happy Thanksgiving.